Hi, everybody. We are live, and I am so thrilled today to be joined for what's going to be a really juicy, intimate, and real conversation with Sarah Jenks, who I've been following for a long time, but this is the first time we've been able to come together and collaborate and do this together for our community. So I'm so happy that you're here. The response to this call was overwhelming. So I know there's people signing in from all over North America and the world, really. And so today we're going to have a really honest conversation about a couple of things that deserve our honesty, and that is our bodies and our health and our money. So for those of you who don't know Sarah, she's phenomenal, and she's a world-renowned coach. She's sort of become a go-to girl for myself and for millions of other women, really. She's really loving, but has really honest advice as well that pertains to our bodies, yes, but also love and life in general. So she's talented beyond measure. She's been featured in the Boston Globe and in Forbes magazine and in Martha Stewart. So I'm just really excited to be here with you today, Sarah. I think it's going to be a great conversation.
Oh, Sandra, thank you so much for having me. I feel so lucky to be here. And as I was telling you, I'm so interested in the connection between food and money right now. And I'm just really excited to dive in and see the connections for people, because we don't always put those two things in the same family. And especially then when it comes to how we want to feel in our lives and what we're waiting on. And I just can't wait. So thank you for having me.
You bet. I'm really excited for, like I said, the honesty around these topics is just so important. And we grow richer, we grow healthier the more that we can have these conversations. And I will say for everyone joining as well, we do have some time set aside for coaching at the end. But if a question pops into your mind and you want to write it into the chat just as we're talking about it, go ahead and do that. And we have Joanna from our Smart Cookies team also on. So she'll be kind of looking at those questions. So if you see her interacting with you, that's who it is. She's part of our community, so keep those questions top of mind for sure. And we'll get to those. So, Sarah, let's dive in. Are you ready? Should we
I'm ready.
Roll into it? Okay, so I wanted to talk about first, you wrote this blog post recently, and it was all about living in your sweet spot, or not living in your sweet spot, really. Can you talk a little bit about that story and sort of what that means to you as it pertains to money and health and all those pieces?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a long journey with trying to figure out self-care and not work. Are you hearing an echo, Sandra?
I'm not. Do you hear a little echo on your end?
A little echo.
Okay.
I'm wondering if I can just go get my earbuds really quick.
Of course, yeah. Take your time.
It's easier for me to concentrate, and you can jam with everyone for a second.
Okay, yeah, no, perfect. Take your time. Awesome. So for everybody who's just coming on now, we're going to be talking with Sarah Jenks, and myself are going to be diving in a little more in detail in terms of how we can get honest with why budgets and diets just don't work, because they really don't, and what we can do instead to stop living in that flux of, waiting on when we lose 10 pounds, or waiting on, when we have somehow we think if we have more money in the bank account, that's when we'll start living life. And I've fallen in that cycle, and I know Sarah will talk about that as well, because it's really easy. It's really easy to get caught up in those patterns. But if we have the right tools in place and we have those honest conversations, then it's easier to start living in the now and really living that beautiful, free life that we all deserve, and not waiting on the weight loss goal or the money goal or whatever it is for you. And sometimes those change. Sometimes they fluctuate. Sometimes it's more focused on health, and sometimes it's more focused on money. And that's just the way life goes. It's important to really be conscious of that, and we'll talk about that. How's it hearing for you, Sarah? Can you hear? Is it
so much better?
Echo?
Sorry about that.
That's okay. No problem.
All right, so let me dive back into the sweet spot.
Yeah.
So for me, my oldest and your youngest are the same age. And so Marshall's 2 now. And I had such a hard time figuring out, once I had children, what is the real balance for me on motherhood, work, money, childcare, and time. And it's such a complicated algorithm, and it's so different for everybody. And I think what happens is that we so often look at what somebody else is doing or think about what we should do, and we're not taking the time to think about what's the right balance for me and how can I question everything I thought was going to be true. So what happened with Marshall is that when he was 6 months old, I officially went back to work, and I really ramped everything up. I wanted to build this huge business and create this ginormous following, and then I got pregnant with my second baby when Marshall was 9 months old. And so at that point, I then had to hire so many people to basically, so I could take myself out of it, because I was so sick in my first trimester, and I was trying to find more time to spend with Marshall. But then I was spending so much money on my team and also my self-care. You know, I said this in my blog post, I had literally, I was paying 19 people between, like my massage therapist and acupuncture and all those things that are important, but I was needing to go all the time just to stay functioning. Plus I had this huge team of 15 people. And so needing to produce so much money to support all of those people was adding so much pressure and stress into my system that I then couldn't turn around and be a good mother or take care of myself or be pregnant. And so it became this vicious cycle. And I just realized that I needed to find a different sweet spot. This was not mine. I think that really would work for some people. Some people feel comfortable generating that much to pay that many people, but it wasn't working for me. So I let go of almost everybody and really simplified and been really concentrating on profit margins. And I can't even tell you, just my whole system relaxed. Mm-hmm. I was able to just be more present with my kids, and I didn't need 3 days of massage, acupuncture, chiropractor every week to feel, like I was human. And I just think it's so important for everyone here to really consider, what is my balance of time at work, time with the kids, paying childcare, paying people like an assistant, because when we can find a rhythm that's good for us, it feels great, and then it's going to change. Mine's about to change in 6 weeks. I can just feel it because Annabelle, my youngest, is now 9 months, and she's coming into a new phase, and it's just so important to think on your feet and be flexible.
Yeah, I love that you said that, Sarah, and that blog post struck such a chord with me, and I think it's weird for a long time, and I'll be honest, because I just think that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, it's the only way.
But, especially, and whether you run a business or, your personal finances or your business, there's a lot of guilt for me personally in terms of designing a financial plan around what works for me.
Yeah, totally.
And that's the hugest aha, because once you do that, you're a functioning human being. And there's also, I'm all for having tools and, everything you need to create a healthy financial plan, but just that mindset around putting really yourself first and what you need coming in terms of profit by design to keep yourself happy. And that in turn creates more flow and creates more money and all the things and all the pieces come together in that way. But I was so excited to see you be so honest about that, because I think a lot of women still have a lot of guilt around asking for what they need financially, and even for themselves. I would be more adept to ask a boss or ask a client for a raise than I would feel weird asking myself to take money out of the business. That is a weird thing.
I know, it's really so interesting, and that's absolutely my edge right now. Mm-hmm. Is how can I spend more on me and my family and our savings and our future and less on the business? Mm-hmm. Because the reality is that the business is great and healthy, and the community is growing, and what's so great is that as I have really pulled back on the monetary investment in the company over the past year, I've really been able to see how my energetic investment in terms of just my presence and my own sanity has naturally grown the company. I mean, I think you need to have both. Like, you can't grow a big company without any financial investment. And this is perfect because this is exactly what we're talking about today. But it also can't be only because of the investment. And it's not black and white, right? And I had to really struggle in that sweet spot of, it wasn't that I was going to spend no money, or my self-care was not about that I was going to cut out gluten or cut out alcohol or cut out sugar. It's about what's my sweet spot, you know? And so for me, I'm finding what that is financially in my business and also in our lives. And then continually with food, as I'm still like just coming out of this postpartum phase with my daughter, you know, what's the balance? Because if I just remove a bunch of food groups, my whole system goes into stress and pressure. And sometimes that can be okay when that's like the only thing you're dealing with, right? But when I am in this very dynamic, you know, chaotic life that I have right now, really only thinking about having the best bread, you know, at the times that feel really like nourishing, as opposed to not at all, or and also not every day, is such a great sweet spot.
I love that so much. And I think when you think about, Sarah, and you know, maybe this comes into the conversation about the sweet spot too, but I noticed for myself, the more, and I, you know, when you're a very A-type personality, and I think we're probably the same way in this area, you know, we set a goal, we want to grow big, and, you know, we get all excited about it. But it's when I notice, actually, when I put more intention towards something and more pressure on myself, the more resistance comes in. It grows slower, whether it's a financial goal, or a health goal, or whatever it is. Do you notice that same thing in your life?
Absolutely. Because when there's so much pressure, you tighten up, and then we look for things to feel looser, right? We look for things to come into balance. And when you have a history of overeating or overspending, or restricting, or like being on a super tight budget, it's easy to go for those things to relieve the pressure, right? And so I think it's just so important to be gentle. You know, there's like, it's so beautiful. Like, how can you think about how can you be gentle with your money? How can you be gentle with your food? And it's not about going off the rails. It's about really thinking, how can I be in relationship with my money and with my food? And I think it's so interesting because whenever with Live More, Weigh Less, which is my signature program, whenever I come out and say this isn't about weight loss, people think that the program's about eating whatever you want whenever you want to. And that's not what this is about. And I think it's really funny how people think that the only reason to take care of our bodies is to look a certain way. And our bodies do so much. And it's so important to nourish them for all that they do for us, you know, for our lives. And I think it just to come back to your question, when we create these like really big pressurized systems in a goal perspective, it brings us into this black and white. And I just think it's so important to come back to the balance and the gentleness with it.
I love that word. I've honed in on that word. Just being gentle with yourself is so key and so important. Do you have any tools, Sarah, that you have used in your programs or in your coaching as it pertains, or in your own life as it pertains to food and health, that you found have helped you on the journey on the personal finance and the money piece too? So you know, something like, how do we cognitively think about being gentle with ourselves? Like, how do we remind ourselves of that when we get caught up in the chaos of the day-to-day?
Yeah, this is so good. So something I talk to my clients about all the time is it's not about the food. So what people come to me is they'll say, I just can't stop eating. I just can't stop eating this, and this, and this. How do I stop? And what I say is, honey, I need you to remember this isn't about the food. And so if someone came to me with money and said, I just keep overspending, I don't know what to do, can you put me on a budget? How do I rein it in? I would say, oh, honey, it's not about the money, right? Mm-hmm. There's something else that this is relating to. We are eating over something. We are spending over something. And so I always bring them back and I have them imagine, okay, how were you feeling before you went to go overeat? Or how were you feeling before you went to go overspend? And what was the feeling you were trying to get from the binge or the shopping spree, right? What was the boost? And when you can identify that, you can then say, let me try to think of an example. So for a lot of women, it's about being rebellious. And it's that sort of like wild, like, I'm going to do whatever I want. Like, don't mess with me. Like, you can't hold me down, you know, all that stuff. And that's totally how I used to be, because I had this peacemaker, good girl trying to like feel all together all the time. And so I would act out in my food, or I would act out in my spending. It was sort of how I would like get some energy out. And I had to learn, okay, how can I rebel more in my life?
Right.
You know, how can I push the edges? Where am I feeling boxed in around in work or in my relationship or my friends, or just the way I'm expressing myself in my clothes? And then I would have the person think about, okay, so how can you do that in your life, right? You don't need to lose weight to be rebellious. You don't need to be rich to be rebellious. And to really think about the actual action steps to do that.
I love that. And it's just, it really is so amazing diving into this conversation and how related money and health and our bodies really are at the end of the day. And it always seems, right, it's almost like one's always a little bit out of balance, depending on just what's going on. But it's a practice, right? Like, I mean, there's nothing, you know, we're going to say hard and fast on this call that's going to like change anything in an instant. And I think that's the truth of it too. I mean, I feel like, you know, been doing this business of Smart Cookies for 10 years now, and have learned so much about money. And still, right now, I find myself in a really interesting part of, you know, of my own financial journey. And it just
what's going on with you?
Well, you know, it's a lot of growth is happening right now, which is amazing. Both in like personal life, so my husband and I, both of our businesses are doing well. We're building our dream home. It's like everything, this is what it is. It's like everything I've worked so hard is the reality now. And it's like sitting with that is like, it's a really interesting time. In terms of, and so I find myself being very conscious of how I'm spending my money and how I'm thinking about money in my business. And there's a lot of, really it's fear that comes out of it. And you know what it is? It's that self-sabotaging, like, this can't last forever. I mean, this is clearly like, there's no way that I deserve this. Like, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
But it is. So it's an interesting time to settle into that for sure.
Yeah. I love what you just said about that, Sandra, because it's the same thing that happens when people get thin or like reach their goal weight, is it doesn't feel the way they thought it was going to feel, right? And so we can, in these moments when we have amassed the abundance that we want to, or come to our goal weight, we're really faced with how this is such a mindset thing, right? So like for me with money, my whole thing is panic that I'm not going to have enough. And it was the same thing with food. I'm not going to have enough. You know, I'd be sitting at a big, long table eating family style, which is like my idea of hell, thinking that everyone's going to eat all the food and there's not going to be enough for me. That's how I felt all the time. And that has absolutely also been my relationship with money. It's like there's never going to be enough. I have to just like more. And when I was starting my business 7 years ago, I could only like dream, and like if I was dreaming the biggest I could, like imagine where my business is now financially. And I still have moments of the same feelings that I had 7 years ago when I was totally broke. And it's just like hitting me like, you know, a frying pan to the head of, oh, it's not about the money. It's about the mindset. And I just think it's so beautiful that you're really experiencing this right now, especially with like building a house and everything. And I just love that you're doing this work to really, tune into that, because women just need to know it's not about the money.
Yeah, exactly. And I love it.
It's great, but it has to be like, it's like its own thing. Like, can we celebrate and still recognize that the panic is not because we need to make more?
Exactly. That's just it. It's understanding where the emotions come from.
Right.
That are so key, right? Because it's so easy to be like, to tie it to something physical, to tie it to some sort of desire, but it's not. I mean, it comes from lots of different places, and it's important to sort through that. It's awesome to be having these conversations right now.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sarah, too, in terms of tools that you use in your life? And I, talk about this with different business owners and different women in their personal lives too. But what are your thoughts on, specific financial tools? And what I mean by that is like an Excel spreadsheet with all your numbers in it, where you look at it daily and, crunch your spending and put yourself on a budget. I mean, do you do something like that in your life and in your business, or what does that look like for you right now?
Yeah. So we run my business and our personal finances a little differently. Mm-hmm. So in my business, we have a really amazing accountant who takes really good care of us. And so I'm actually only like reviewing our P&L sheet, like our profit loss sheet, once a month. And I check in on it like periodically to make sure things are in good. But what's great about my business is that things are so highly planned that we don't have a lot of surprises, which is really nice that that's happening right now. And that gets a little complicated because so much of what we do is, we do sort of bigger, like a few big pushes a year. And so a lot of it is cash carry. And it's just like we were talking about at the beginning of this call, I have to really push myself to think about like, okay, do I really need to carry all this cash in my business, or can I, pay myself a little bit more?
Exactly.
Yeah. And then with our personal finances, honestly, right now, it's a really big like push and pull dynamic with my husband, because we're in an interesting situation because he's a surgery resident right now. And we've been together for 10 years and he's been in school and training this entire time. So I've been the primary breadwinner for our entire relationship.
Wow.
And it's been a lot with having 2 kids in 2 years. And so with our personal finances, I've really been trying to empower him to manage them so that we're equal partners in the money. But it's been hard because he doesn't have a lot of time, and it's not like in his genius. Like, he's really great at building organs out of random things. He's like not so great at math. It's like really interesting to me. And he knows it, like he knows that I make fun of him in public all the time, so it's fine. So we're really working on that. And so what we're doing right now is we have a really great Excel sheet, and we try to balance our credit card with our checking account every month, and we check in about every 2 weeks. And it's been hard, to be honest, but it's been great and meaningful at the same time.
That's awesome. And Sarah, I have to apologize. For some reason on my end, the video just cut out. So
fine.
I just logged in. I was like, oh my God, I hope she's still there. So I just caught the tail end of that. So so in your personal finances, you guys are still
we're still working it out.
You're still working it out, which is, I find that it's one of the most common things we talk about in Smart Cookies is how to have those conversations, and everyone's dynamic is that's such a hotbed of emotion that goes into those conversations. Yeah. And interesting for you as like the main supporter for so many years, right? Like having to, it's another layer of balance that you add to that whole process. Or how are you guys feeling? How do you feel good about the conversations that you're able to have right now?
Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. It's a hot trigger point for us, and it always has been. I think because my husband so deeply wants to be able to provide for our family. He's just one of those men who he has hunter energy, and it just kills him that he can't. And I think every time we open our Excel spreadsheet, that comes up. And so again, it's always so important to remember it's not about the money. And what's great is that I'd say about half the time we have productive conversations around it. And also, like, we come from very different spending, opinions on how we should spend our money. His opinion is that we should save as much as we can. Mm-hmm. And my opinion is to have a balance. And probably I err on the side of saving less and spending more, to make sure our lifestyle is, beautiful and juicy, and our kids are in classes, and we have a great nanny who we pay her so much money because we just love her. Yeah. And so we're also always still in that dance. But what's great is that I'm learning to save more, and Jonathan's learning to spend more, and so we're really working on it.
And meeting each other, and like you say, it's a dance, right? It's like, yeah, you've got to go with the flow on that for sure.
Exactly.
Jason and I are very much the same way, and it was funny, when we met, he was very much the spender, and I was very much like hardcore and like smart cookie. So trying to like all rein it in. And a lot of resistance, like you say, comes up around those conversations. And we got in the habit, and especially when I got pregnant, I went into like crazy, like I honestly thought we were going to live on the streets. Like that's where my mind went. I was like, talk about like a lack mentality. Like I really thought for sure the money was going to run out. We were going to be like in poverty. Like, it was ridiculous. The baby thing really triggered me. So one of the things we did as a tool was, like, before even looking at an Excel spreadsheet, we would talk about, okay, what do we want to experience this year in terms of, adventures as a family, and what do those look like in terms of, then work backwards from there from financial goals. For us, that made the conversation, because we couldn't even have the conversation about money because it was just like trigger firecracker off. So, but like you say, if you make it beyond what the money is, or the weight loss, or whatever the goal is, it's never, like you say, it's never tied. It's not about the weight, and it's not about the money.
Yeah. And something Jonathan and I also do is when we're reviewing what we spent that month, we use it as a gratitude practice. And we try to like, oh, that dinner out, that was so beautiful. We had such a great conversation at that dinner. Like, oh my gosh, like, look at all these beautiful groceries we were able to feed our children. Or like, remember that getaway, that was so great, and all of these beautiful things that came out of it. Because sometimes Jonathan feels like spending money is literally just throwing it in the trash and not getting anything back. And what's been great through this gratitude practice is that we're both seeing just the value of the experience that money can give you.
Yeah. And that's a really, and that creates, it's so great to have that conversation and to look back, and also going forward and helps you look at when you're thinking about spending money, okay, what is the gratitude practice that's going to come from that? And if it isn't there, then it's like, okay, then why are we spending money on it,
Yeah, exactly.
And on the nanny piece, I will say, for anyone's listening who is a parent, that's the one piece of money too, where I'm like, when we found a great nanny too, and I'm like, I will pay her whatever. And we actually have one guy, and we pay her a lot of money because she's amazing. But Jason has one of his bosses at work. His advice was, when you find a good nanny, pay her double what anyone else is paying, and she will be with you forever.
Forever. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and childcare, it's such an interesting thing. Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, let's dive in.
Because there's this whole dynamic where, like, the women's salary should pay for the nanny. And this is like such a hot button for me, because I just never feel like, unless it's really what you want, that it's just default that the woman should be just assume that she would stay home with the kids, and that would be the assumption, and working is like a nice, fun thing for her to have, because I just think it's really important for all of us to understand that when you have children, you share your finances and you share the responsibility of childcare, and that comes equally from both parties. And the way that Jonathan and I think about it is by percentage. Yeah. So like, Jonathan makes a certain percentage of what I make, and so whatever that percentage is comes out of his paycheck to pay our nanny, and then whatever percentage I make comes out of my paycheck to pay the nanny. And that ends up working out really well because we feel like we're really, sharing the responsibility. Or the ways to do it is you just put everything into a pot and then pull out. And I just think that's really, really important because I see so many women who are just giving up on their dreams because they don't feel like they can cover the cost of a nanny and have any meaningful money left over. And I just think that's really hard if that's what you really want to do. Yeah. And of course, if you want to stay home with your kids, that is such a beautiful, amazing opportunity. But I just think it's so important for people to start thinking about that differently. I don't know, Sandra, what do you think about the whole thing?
I'm right there with you. Honestly, it breaks my heart to hear those conversations. And unfortunately, it is a very common thought pattern. And I think the pattern is being broken a little bit, but it takes realness like this, right? To be you owe it to yourself to have that conversation with your partner to say, it's important for me as a living, breathing human to, if that's important to you, to, pursue my business or pursue my career and, to be a loving partner in my marriage and to be a great mom. That's the pieces that makes me a human being. Yeah. And, sometimes I feel bad in some ways because my husband is very understanding of those conversations, but for a lot of women, that's not an easy conversation.
I know.
To have, which is a hard thing, but I think, you owe it to yourself not to just kind of sit back and, be like, oh, well, my career will be there, in a few years when the kids are at school, and that's fine if that's what you want to do, but if it's really in your heart every single day that you want to do this and having that conversation, and framing it in terms of, this is really important to me, I just feel like you've got to do that. And it's a scary conversation. I'm not downplaying it at all, but and it absolutely shouldn't be a conversation where it's turned into, well, if you were making $2,000 a month, then that, would cover the nanny or the childcare. And it doesn't work that way. You're building, everyone's dreams are equally as important in a relationship, and that's really important to understand and remember.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just really important to understand if you're thinking about starting a business, that it takes investment, in time and money. And, our nanny makes a little bit more than my husband right now. And I'm not telling him he has to quit residency because he doesn't cover childcare,
Yeah, exactly.
This is an investment for him in our future, and he has big plans. Just like if I were starting a business right now, I would have big plans for our future in a couple of years. And it just takes investment and time. And I think all we can do is be clear about that and know that not all businesses you can just jump right into and start making six figures in a week. Some you can, which is great. But that's not how it goes, especially when you're an entrepreneur. And I just think it's really important for everyone to know that that's okay. And that doesn't need to be a prerequisite for going to work if you're a mother.
No, absolutely. And I will say, too, I do think, even though, and knowing the knowledge, because I think so many women have that itch now to, start their own business or start something. And it is 100% true that, in the first couple of years, you shouldn't be expecting to be drawing a ton of money from the business, and that it takes investment. But do look at, and I love, this is where I think what you said about the sweet spot comes into play, have a really clear picture about what that sweet spot looks like for you, and work that into, what you're going to charge in the beginning, and work that into your plan so that you're working towards that and not living in this mentality where I found myself trapped for a long time of it's got to be a grind, you can't take any money, it's not. At some point it should be a beautiful, abundant thing for all areas of your life too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think really getting into the numbers, and my calculator was my best friend for months trying to figure out what was the right model for me. And you have to be so crystal clear on the numbers and really get in there and do the math, especially with conversion rates and leads and, revenue and profit and all that stuff. It's so important.
So important, and can seem overwhelming and scary, but honestly, I love diving into the numbers now.
Yeah.
I love, honestly, the numbers for me are where the magic is, because once you kind of own them and start to get into it, it's something that you can tangibly control to some extent too.
Yeah.
You know, you can get in and once you see that, the magic does happen. So
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things that can be really overwhelming in the beginning, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sarah, what do you think? Is it, creating wealth for you, is it about, revenue? I know, especially in the online world, right? A lot of people like to talk about like my 6-figure launch and like I made $1 million. Like in your world, is that what it's all about, or is it more important to you of what you can take and put back into your beautiful life with your family? Is it what you make or what you keep?
Right. So for what year was it? There was one year where I made so much money and I spent all of it on my business. And like the revenue numbers looked great and the profit was terrible. I mean, so bad. And I just realized in that moment, oh, this doesn't feel good. Never again. And yes, there was a lot of investing that was happening, but there was also a lot of it, if I'm being real with myself, that weren't smart investments. And although maybe it contributed to like a slightly higher revenue, it wasn't necessarily going to like grow it that much more the next year. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a long-term investment.
Yeah.
And so now I am so savvy about our profit margins. It's just like everything to me, because I just feel like a good business like creates cash, and that's the kind of business I want to have right now, because I'm supporting our family, and so I'm not building something to support my family in 5 to 10 years, which is another really great business model. It's just not the one that I have right now. And so for me, I'm really thinking about things like paying our rent, and paying our nanny and buying our food and all that stuff. And it's, I went into it like kind of kicking and screaming, because that just wasn't the dynamic that I grew up with. That wasn't my own education. And I, look at my parents and think like that looked pretty good, and so, but now it feels really gratifying for me to be able to work to do those things for my family. And I am really looking forward to when Jonathan and I are both equally contributing. It'll just mean that we can maybe, save more, go on a few more vacations, and I can maybe like redecorate my house a little bit more often. Like that's my fun thing. My fun thing is like when I have a surplus and we've put some in savings and, we're good with our daily spending, I'll go and like buy new throw pillows for the couch or a new rug or redecorate the bathroom.
Yeah.
And that just like really gets me juiced. And I think it's so important for everyone to have that, to know like what's the thing that's going to inspire you. So when I get excited about a launch, I'm thinking about putting some money in savings, covering our daily spending, but then like redecorating my house, or like buying a few new beautiful dresses. Like those are the things that really get me excited. And I know that can seem maybe materialistic and shallow to some people, but for me, it's just, there's something spiritual about having those beautiful things.
Yeah.
They light me up. And to me, it's about to have my home feel even more like a temple and a really beautiful environment.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm very sensitive to my environment too, and that's where like I would spend my money over decorating, our apartment and our home over, for me, even travel. Like for me, I'm like, if I can just create like a nested home and feel really awesome about that, like that is my happy place for sure. And I think, I love what you just said, Sarah, too, about when you have, and no matter what your financial situation, I do think it's so important to give yourself a little bit of a treat, whether it's a $3 lipstick or, you don't have to go charge a new couch to your credit card, but, buy a throw pillow and, like do what makes you feel really happy, but be intentional about it, right? Like you have come to the place where you are so clear on, what makes you really happy to spend your money on, and what those we have an exercise we do in Smart Cookies, we call it the day well lived, and we like paint the picture of what that day looks like, and then we and we talk about like what surrounds us in that day. And so while we're working towards our financial goals to get us there, one of the things we do is, talk about what can you buy? What are the little purchases that give you a taste of that while you're kind of working and you're on that journey. So I love that so much. What do you think, Sarah, I'd love to talk about this a little bit too. I know there's some questions coming in, so we'll definitely get to them. But you talk a lot about the idea of being skinny for a living and how you came to that realization. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, totally. Such a good question. So what I really realized is that everyone has sort of a natural way of being with their food and in their body. So I really think like constitution, age, genes, they're a real thing. And if I was trying to be really thin, like if I was trying to be a size 2, it would be a full-time job. It's not where my body wants to land. And if I look at every single woman in my family for generations, no one has ever been a size 2, right? And I could do that, right? I could be a size 2 if I wanted to, but I would have to be skinny for a living. It would take up all of my time. And so what my journey has been is finding like my set point for my body where I feel healthy and energized and alive, and then learning how to accept and love that place. Hi, pups.
Sorry, I got my dog in here with me and she's getting protective all this.
Accept and learn to love that place, because before I did all this work, I would think that, being a size 10 or a size 12 would mean that I was not sexy at all. And when my body sort of finds her happy spot in that area, I then have to do the work like, okay, this is me, this is my body, and that idea that I can't be sexy at this size, that's just ridiculous. And then I need to do the work. And I just think that's so important for people to understand the difference, right? We can't all look like Giselle because Giselle is a different set of genes than a lot of us do. And so it's about finding our own ideal body. And it's not about looking like your 23-year-old self or your best friend or your favorite celebrity. It's just you being you and healthy. And it's just a beautiful place to land and get comfortable with, because it actually doesn't take that much energy. You don't have to be skinny for a living. You're just like doing things, following the wisdom of your body, and you're living more, and you're not getting caught up in all the diet stuff. And it just becomes like breathing. It's so amazing.
Yeah, I love that. Everything, all your blogs and all your emails, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. I just need it. And when you write about it, I think too, the money piece is always top of mind. And I'm like, you know what? It's the same thing, because, you could have $1 million in your bank account or, whatever the goal is, but, do you want to, and some people thrive on that, right? Like dedicating their lives to being a size 0 or having $1 million, but, what does that look like in your own life and in your own business? And I do think it's a really aha moment to get to the place, and I love that you said it. It's like, yeah, I could, like, clearly I can do whatever I set my mind to, but I don't want to, and there's no need. Like, that's the
right. There's no need. Like, for what?
Yeah, exactly. For what? For who? And for like, what does that give me in my life that I can't get by, like you say, like just feeling sexy on, where you're at, and and embracing who you are. I just think is such a powerful thing. And I've been thinking about this a lot when I had my daughter too. The idea of how she feels about her body and herself. I just, what you're doing for women in this realm, I just think is like, I could fall my face off talking about it. I think it's so,
thanks.
It's so important. Do you feel that too when you had your daughter? Did you have a sense of your, what you do kind of take to another level?
Totally. And honestly, I write a lot of my blog posts now imagining her reading them in like 20 years. Yeah. Because I really want the world to be a different place for her when she's 12. And I'm really dedicated to that, because I just see just the lies that are being thrown at us left and right. And it just scares me. because I know that when you adopt the lies as truth, that it's hell. It's like total body hell. And I was just in it for so long. And I can't even tell you, I mean, how amazing it is to not be in that space anymore. And I think it's so important, and I just want to reiterate this because I think this is part of like the indoctrination that we have, is that just because we're not all trying to be a size 2 doesn't mean we're not trying to be healthy.
Yeah.
And I think that is so key, and I always feel like I need to say it a million times because it's not about like just trying to be okay with feeling like crap. Like that's not fun, right? No. Yeah. And you know that with working with money, it's not just like having $5 in your bank account and being like, I'm fine, no problem. Like I'm not even gonna worry about it. Whatever. Like I'll go, eat some soup. It's like, no, it's like you gotta find like what's your sweet spot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You gotta find that. What is your sweet spot for sure? So why is it, do you think, that when we get to that place, when we, even if we haven't hit our sweet spot, but we're in the practice of it, right? Like we're living more, we're doing things that light us up. Why do you think then that's when we notice, maybe some of the weight falls off, but maybe we just feel healthier. Or maybe, we're suddenly attracting these money-making opportunities and we're suddenly spending less money. Like what happens there? What do you think that magic is?
Yeah, I love this. Well, I think, biologically, it's all about stress, right? So when we're living more and we're doing all the things we thought we needed to be a size 2 to do, like starting to date or learning how to be more carefree or working on finding a job that we love, doing more fun and exciting things with our friends, our stress level goes way down. When our stress level goes down, we burn more calories faster. We're not emotionally eating. So that's how my program works. It's all about emotional eating. So the more fun you're having and the more filled up you are and the more you're in alignment with your soul, the less you need food to feel that way. And so you just naturally don't want to eat the ice cream. And then I really think that there's a really strong, spiritual component about this, which I know that you get, is I just feel like when we're in alignment with our soul, people recognize us. Like if someone walked into my house and my house was a super sleek, modern house, they would sort of look at me and look at my house and be like, oh, like this is not a match. Like this is weird, Sarah. You just designed this really strange house that doesn't feel like you. Like even if someone had just met me for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, like when we are in alignment with our soul, it's like our whole system is like a perfectly decorated house that matches our energy. And so people are they trust us.
Yeah.
And they feel comfortable with us.
Yeah.
And so they want to be with us more and they want to pay us more money and, we get more friends. And then it's this self-perpetuating, beautiful cycle of abundance.
Yeah.
And it all comes back to being in alignment. And this whole live more, way less thing, the reason why I do this work is because I think it's so beautiful that the way we eat and the way we hate our body is a direct map to what our soul wants. And that is so cool. And it's the same thing with money, like the reasons why we want to amass certain money or the reasons why we want to be better spenders, it's a direct map to what our soul is so deeply desiring. But if we can just go out and get those things, like just like you were saying you were doing with your women, with like how can you buy the little things to lead up to your perfect day and just like bring them to you, you just get that like click that just makes the whole universe and population just magnetize to you.
Oh my God, Sarah, I'm going to put what you just said on repeat over and over. Like, honestly, I'm like, it's so true. And when what you just said, I don't think I've ever been able to put into words, but it's exactly so true. And I've seen it over and over again in my life personally. And the women, and the lives of the women in Smart Cookies too. It's like, but you almost, like you say, like you need those little clicks along the way to like almost prove to yourself that that's a real thing, right? Like you see it along the way and you're like, oh my God, like it's kind of like a holy shit, like what, if I really put my mind to this, like if I really put, relax into this intention and where I'm supposed to be, like, what else will happen in my life? Like, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's so amazing. I have this one client who, and this just even goes back to the everyday thing, she was really starting to live more before she found a partner, before she lost weight. And her neighbor fell in love with her because she was just leaving the house all the time. And they lived next to each other for years, but he'd never seen her like leave the house so much. He's like, what is she up to? Like, she's like coming in and out. Like, he could sense that she had some like good stuff going on. And he's like, I want some of that.
I want some of that.
Just, like, such a great example.
Yeah, that's totally actually a great example. So before I know that there's some questions coming in, so I want to get to those, but I want everyone to hear more about the Live More Challenge that's coming up and how they can get involved. Can you share a little bit, because it's exactly what we've just been talking about. So can you share a little bit about what the challenge is? Yeah, so the Live More Challenge, it's literally my favorite thing to do. This is our like 6th or 7th time doing it. We already have like thousands of women signed up, and it starts on June 6th. So that's a week from today. No, week from yesterday. And what we are doing is these things that I was just talking about, like bringing the Live More things that we have put off to when we lose 20 pounds, when we make 50 grand, and really bringing it into your daily lives right now. So in a way that I tell you exactly what to do, when to do it, so you don't have to think about it or use any creative energy. All you have to do is really experience what it feels like to have these tiny life upgrades. Because what's so amazing is that when we can do things like wear red lipstick on one day, buy ourselves fresh flowers, like do a certain journaling exercise, or just spend literally 30 seconds appreciating our body, these amazing things happen. I mean, it blows my mind every time that this like simple act can have this huge impact. And the things that people come out with at the end of the challenge just blow my mind, because it seems so simple, but women quit their jobs. Like, I had someone write into me at our last challenge that she had sex with her husband for the first time in 10 years. Stop it. Oh my God.
And like, she's like, you have no idea. It has changed everything in our marriage. And it just blows my mind. Like, I have women whose daughters are like, Mom, like, you seem really different. And they want to spend more time with her. And like, can we go shopping? She's like, my daughter had never asked me to go shopping. She's like 17-year-old daughter. And so it just makes me so happy to see how these tiny little things that don't have to be hard or cost any money, the challenge is totally free. Awesome. And just has a really big impact. So I would just really, really love for all of you to join me. And you get email directions, plus I post on Instagram every day. And the community is really beautiful. Like, we have women getting together in person in different cities, and it's really cool.
One of my best girlfriends here did your program, Christine Ashburn. It's a really close
friend. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. And she loved it. And so I'm really excited to dive in this year and get our smart cookies going too. It's
awesome.
It's going to be awesome. And it starts when? It's June 6th, right, Sarah?
June 6th. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So everybody, I think I put up the link to join in, but if you're not seeing it, not to worry, it's going to be emailed after. So we'll make sure everyone knows where to go to sign up. But I'm really excited about it. Because how many years have you been doing it now? It's been a couple years, right?
Yeah, it's been about 4 years.
Oh, that's amazing.
We do the challenge at least twice a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, so it's been so many times. It's been great.
Okay, so we'll recap the challenge at the end, but there's some great questions coming in.
Great.
I want to get to those, and I'm going to look at my phone because I've got them being texted to me right now.
Oh, great. Perfect.
Okay, so this is from Caroline. So she wants to know how to let go of wanting to lose the weight and let go of the fear of gaining it back.
This is so good. Okay, who is this from? Joanna? Caroline, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, Caroline. So I just want you to really make a list for yourself. What will I believe will be different about myself and my body when I lose weight? So really make that list. I will have a new boyfriend. I'll have new clothes. I will do all this stuff, whatever it is. And then go out and do those things. And when you are taking care of yourself, you will just see that you when you're putting love in physically, you're going to start to realize how you can take care of yourself through eating, right? So acceptance does not mean giving up, right? Acceptance means having a new sort of like action around loving ourselves and the way that we're nourishing ourselves through food and our lives and our self-care. And it is so, so important to have a community of women who are also thinking this way.
Yes.
Because there's always so many people around us who don't believe that this is actually possible for them. They're so stuck on the diet train. And so, Caroline, it'll just be really, really important for you to join the challenge so that you are really among women who share this philosophy, because then you can get sort of scooped up and like tossed down the river of self-love. Because when you're like climbing up the mountain of body jail, it's just like not fun. And
No.
you need a community.
You need, 100% you need the community.
Yeah.
That was awesome, Sarah. Okay, so next question is from Christy. So she wants to know, how do you find, in quotes, your ideal body weight?
Okay, this is great. So it's about making that list, like really identifying, because so many of us think we need to weigh less in order to live more. Right. And when we do that, our lives really suck because we're putting off everything that our soul desires until later. And so we're naturally going to eat and eat and eat and eat and eat in a way that our body doesn't want. We're eating for emotional medicine instead of physical medicine. And so when you can live more to weigh less and you no longer need food for emotional medicine, so you're only eating when you're hungry, you're stopping when you're satisfied, you're eating foods that your body desires, then you will naturally come to your ideal weight and you'll feel amazing. And it just becomes literally natural. It's like kind of hard to explain, but it's something, and that's why I have this program, is to support women through this process, because it's like a whole undoing of all of these belief systems and ways we used to do it. And it's just so incredible to see women experience this completely different way of thinking.
Yeah, that's just it. It's not a number, right? It's a feeling.
No, it's a feeling.
Yeah. You don't know.
Yeah, and I really feel like when you can remove the emotional eating, that's how you know your body just shows up where she wants to.
Yep, exactly. I love when you talk about your body like that, where she wants to.
Yeah, it's like whatever. And it's going to change all the time. Like my body's natural set point right now is different than it was before I had children, and it will be different in a year from now. Like I just stopped breastfeeding. My hormones are like bonkers, and it's just like, it takes some time, and all I can do is be like really gentle and continue to just eat for physical medicine and to really watch the emotional medicine stuff, which is hard when you're a sleep-deprived mother of 2 with a full-time job.
Yeah, it can be tricky.
Right, but I'm just like always trying to be in integrity with my work and just continuing to see where things land.
I love it. I love how real you are. It's awesome. Okay, this one's from Jess. Sarah said, so she says, okay, Sarah, you said ask yourself what you are feeling before and what you're feeling. Are you trying to get over? Yeah, what are you feeling, or what are you trying to get over by eating or overspending? How do we get to be able to answer that? So for you, you mentioned that it was all about the rebellion. So there's not an easy answer here, but how can someone start going through that process?
I think the start is just to pause and to say, like, okay, I want to eat that cookie. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to put it on the plate, and I'm going to put it on the table, and I'm just going to set a timer for 1 minute. And I understand that this can be like the hardest minute of your life, but you're going to eat the cookie eventually. I just need you to stop and be like, okay, how am I feeling right now? Why do I want this cookie? And how do I believe the cookie is going to make me feel? And so it's just space, distance. But this isn't about not eat, then go eat the cookie and then see how you feel afterwards. Like, okay, so did that do the thing I thought it was going to do? Because what normally happens is we eat the cookie and then we're like, oh, crap. And we just block all of our emotions. We stop tuning in and we don't learn from it. We just stay disconnected. And so, like, it doesn't matter if you eat the cookie or not. Like, I am not concerned with calories and sugar. What I'm concerned about is that this cookie replaced an opportunity for you to really see what's going on with you. Because when you can really tune into that, you can see, like, oh, I'm really missing out on a big desire for my life because I just keep eating over it. And I need to listen to that, even if it means going down that path can feel kind of painful. Yeah. But it's worth it every time. Like, you do not want to piss off your soul because she's just going to keep coming back and smacking you down. And, like, here's a dozen cookies, like, until you start to listen.
So you took a bumper sticker out of that one. Do not.
Don't piss off your soul.
Okay, last question, because I know we're running out of time here.
Yeah.
Dorothy. I used to binge eat. Now that I'm body positive, I find myself spending on more money on pampering stuff like bath bombs and nail polish. But she has a tight budget. Do I still need to set up a budget plan for these days? I feel bad and need pampering. What do you think about that, Sarah?
I mean, I'm sure you have so many opinions on this too, Sandra, but I think pampering from a place of self-love is so beautiful. Like, yes, have a budget for that. You deserve that. Like, the amount of money I spend on self-care would make some people's heads spin. But it's just what I want, and it's what I need to feel whole, and I'm not embarrassed about it. And if painting your nails and buying bath bombs makes you feel like a queen, then that's really important.
I agree. And it is, and I love it, Dorothy. It's not like you didn't even say, I want to go get a manicure and a pedicure. It's like you want to buy a bath bomb and have a spa day and like go for it 100% and, have that money and don't, take the guilt away from whatever you're feeling there, knowing that that's like an investment in your sanity, just like we were talking about with childcare too, right? It's getting clear on that and stripping the guilt away from those expenses. It's, you've got to be able to do that. And then, you have to do that in order to get to the point where eventually in your budget, there'll be a spot where, you won't have to worry about it. You won't have to think twice about it. But along the road, don't strip those things away, because it's exactly what Sarah and I have been talking about. You just get caught up in that self-sabotaging cycle that you rebel against it. It does nobody good. Perfect. Thank you.
I love that, Sandra.
Yeah. Sarah, I could talk to you all day, but
I know.
I know. Clearly, we both have. Everyone has things to get to. But thank you so much for sharing your honesty today and for your knowledge. I mean, you are phenomenal, and I can't wait to follow along on the challenge with you and have our smart cookies follow along. It's gonna be really special. And the timing, right, like heading into summer, I think is so beautiful. So
yeah. And it's so great for me because I'm really coming into a time period of intense self-care and really slowing down. And I think summer is a really beautiful time to do that. And I just want to end on this one thing, because in the marketing world, they say like launching something in June is the worst idea. And I'm just not following the money on this one. I'm following my heart. And I just know that this is what I need and this is what women need. And I'm just so excited to do this with all of you. And Sandra, you're just such a light beam of joy. And I'm just so grateful to be here with you. And I'm just so thrilled that women have you to be their leader with money, because we need it. We definitely need it.
Thank you, Sarah. And we need these honest conversations. That's the biggest thing for women listening, join Sarah's community, join the Smart Cookie community. Like, having these like-minded communities are what keep this momentum going for all of us. So so happy you joined us today. And Sarah, we'll see you in the challenge. I can't wait.
I can't wait. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right. Bye. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.